When you first move to the big city, whether it's London or New York or some other hub, you can feel jittery and excited. There are a lot of possibilities out there. Every experience can be exciting and new. There are opportunities and folks to work with and people to learn from, bursting from the seams of the cities. What more could you ask for? It is wonderful here, or at least that's how it starts out, and then weeks and months and years pass, and the trash bags that litter the sidewalks no longer feel like a necessary part of the city's aesthetic. The crowded underground trains feel a little bit unbreathable. Everything feels harder than it should be, and everyone seems a bit meaner than they should be. City life can be hard, and it's definitely not always wonderful, but you stay for the opportunity, you stay for what you can get from it, what it can bring you, and what excitement all the people around you still have left in them. I'm not tired of London yet, but if I could teleport in to work and meet friends and live somewhere calmer with a bit less carbon dioxide, I would. I stay because of all that it can bring me, despite all the negatives. And there are apps out there that feel like London. They're slow and junk-filled or bogged down with advertising, but you can't get rid of them because you need to use them for work, or because enough of your friends still communicate through them that you have to keep using them, you have to stick around, or you risk losing contact with the people you hold dear. Now, if you're building an app, then locking people into a terrible design is not something to strive for. Ideally, your app's design and aesthetics should be like a beautiful and perfect city. In your app, the underground train should never be late, the traffic should always be light, and you would bump into a friend walking down the street exactly when you needed to. Of course, beauty and aesthetics aren't the only goal. If you're creating a perfect city for your users to live in, it also has to be functional. It also needs to possess usability and smarts, I guess. Those are the design elements that make your app hopefully everlasting, or close enough. Users want your app to do the things you say it'll do when they need it to. They don't want it to be very difficult. There shouldn't be a huge struggle in figuring out exactly how to use your app. So let's look at both sides of that design equation. How to make sure your app is delightful to look at and to experience, while also being usable and full of smarts.
In my mind, I animated Totem as a puppy. So the little jumps and the little animations that the Totem has are kind of like have this playfulness. And it's just 4 cubes, one on top of each other. But giving Totem that kind of like character and warmth, that was something that kind of like I took onto myself, and like I'm gonna make sure people care about these blocks. So when I joined the kind of like Morning Valley was at the beginning of pre-production. But as I understand, there were a few months where everyone in the games team was kind of like throwing off ideas and bouncing off each other. Our former lead artist, Ken Wong, kind of like did some concept art for games that like didn't exist. In that sense, like I think that's something that like works really well for us, kind of like starting with the visuals. So he was working on a bunch of different ideas, and he put them on the wall. If you've seen the studios, everywhere is covered with pictures.
And BAFTAs. Well, and international awards. They're up there as well.
We have a couple of BAFTAs, which makes me really happy. But
so did you have a strategy for drawing the player's eye to the things that they were able to interact with?
We didn't want to have UI in the game. Like the only UI that we have is the pause button, and some other, like if you zoom in, then there's a camera button so you can take a screenshot. But the game doesn't have, like the only tutorial UI is a text that says, in the real world, there's no analogy to something like, oh, I know that I can grab this and push it. Maybe some kind of like handles in a sliding door or something, but that will be too small a detail.
What sort of conversations do I need to have with UI and UX designers? How do you have that conversation about what words should I be using when I'm just used to slapping stuff together in Photoshop myself?
Well, the most important thing is to have some kind of thing to point at. You need a shared understanding. You need to be talking about the same thing. In your mind, I'm sure it's very clear, but you need to be able to convey that to other people. And if that's a UX designer or a UI designer, then a Photoshop file would be absolutely fine.
Would some scrawls on a paper be acceptable?
Even better, actually. Yeah. So I would argue that something with lower levels of fidelity or definition at that point are in your favour, because you're asking for the experts that you're working with to feed into that process. So a sketch is perfect. The back of the napkin sketch will give you a an opportunity for it, a conversation around something that you can all point to and discuss.
How do you make a design that people really connect with, that people look at and think, oh, this is lovely, I don't mind using this?
It's an interesting one because I think when I first started in design, I didn't realise the impact that emotion and the aesthetic layer of a product has on people's perception. Over the years, I've become to realise that actually that's one of the most important things. People make their mind up very quickly about a product, and then will often post-rationalise that decision as to whether it provides them benefit or not.
So you want something that is using great imagery, color, shapes, typography, and form, basically anything that helps alleviate the user experience of it, just the aesthetics of your app.
So UI design is purely about how it looks as opposed to the whole experience and what the buttons do.
It goes hand in hand with UX design, of course, but obviously UI design is just to make it look good and make you feel good using it, and it adds that kind of sense of premium. You know, when something looks good, you know that it's been made well.
So the app I'm making is really simple. It's basically just one button at the minute. What's the basic advice that you give someone who doesn't have a big team behind them, who is just trying to make something that works?
You know the abbreviation KISS, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
So that applies to everything, especially app design. You really don't want to go too far. If it's simple, make sure it does that one thing and one thing well. And if it has that one button, then make it like really good button.
I'm still not sure whether we're going to have a button in here because you don't technically need a button for this. Like the app could just work out where you are and give you a fact.
Exactly.
But I like the idea that there is some sort of process in this. There is some sort of moment of going, yes, I choose to do this.
Yes.
What sort of things can you do to a button to kind of, I don't know, give it a personality, I guess? give it something that is more than just, yeah, this is the button I use to.
I'm going to assume that when you're in an area and your app will kind of want to tell you that there's something interesting here, so it's kind of inviting you to press the button. So when you press the button, well, before you press the button, it will have some kind of animation or glow or something to hint at you that, you know, there's something here, there's something interesting. Maybe a notification of some sort.
Something to invite you to press it. And then after you press it, I guess it gets out of the way.
So after you press it, there's so much more than just pressing the button. You kind of expect a feedback loop where when you press the button, you want to know that you've pressed it. So, you know, there'll be an animation of an indent and then maybe an animation that goes pop or something like that. And also sound effects are great here. Just anything to make you feel like, ooh, this is sparking something.
I guess it could also preload whatever it's going to show you in the background.
Oh gosh, so when I was thinking about this app, it would be really cool to drum up some kind of anticipation just before your little snippet comes up. So I had in mind where if in the app itself, maybe you have like a little animation or imagery that your app is like scanning the area and goes, and then comes up, and you're like, ooh.
As a nerd, I get really annoyed by fake scanning. But I appreciate that not everyone agrees with me on that.
I know, because like, you know, that's the thing. Like, we can't really think about ourselves when we make the app. We have to think about the users. And a lot of people like to think that their app or their machine is thinking or doing something, you know? It's all about that feedback loop.
Think about the points when your app can be joyful. Users want apps to be efficient and valuable, sure, but also making the users happy along the way is a good way to keep folks loyal. Now, it might just be a subtle animation when they press a button or a sound effect when they achieve something. These small moments of joy build up to make your app something that users really like. Second, use data to inform your design. Whether it's UI or UX, be sure that you've got some research to back up your design decisions. Look at what your users want and what your competitors are doing when you're thinking about what you should keep and what you should exclude from your app's design. And finally, don't add design elements just for the sake of it. It's best, in most cases, to keep it simple. Make sure it solves the core problem well and spend some time to focus on what kind of emotion you want to draw from your users. Certain colors, typography, and motion can help convey that emotion with your app's design. Next time, once it's all built, how to launch.